Hi, everybody. It's Tay. Welcome back to the PSW podcast. I'm here today with Beth from Conestoga College. She is managing, directing, in charge basically of the supportive care program that they're offering. So thank you, Beth, for being here today. And let's get into this. What's the supportive care program and what are we doing here? I'm excited.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for having me today. So the supportive care program's a tuition-free program. It's 18 weeks in length, and it's where you learn skills to look after people in the home, community, retirement. It's a pathway to PSW. So it's level 1 of our PSW program. At the end of this program, you receive a college certificate. You also receive food safety, mental health first aid, and CPR. And you also are partnered with an employer. So we have employer partners across Ontario, and you would be partnered with them. You do 80 hours of paid preceptorship with them and actually have that job offer when you're done. So when you're doing the program itself, it is online through Zoom at a scheduled time. But then you'll be doing that in-person shadowing once you reach week 10 of the program.
Which I think is very cool. I've had like hesitancy with online learning and like PSW work, because we've seen that a lot with the pandemic, and I understand that this is kind of how things are being delivered now safely. But what I thought was very different about your program was that you're kind of, for lack of a better word, you're kind of holding their hand a little bit towards getting an actual job, and you are providing hands-on experience, with their clinical placements. And offering paid clinical placements, which I think is huge. So it's really nice for the person that can't afford to essentially donate their time for their clinical placement. And this just seems really accessible and nice. Can you kind of walk me through a little bit when you're talking about level 1 with the PSW? Is this going to get, so if you do like what you're doing, like you said, it's kind of dipping your toes in healthcare, but if you like being, a healthcare aide or supportive care worker and you want to become a PSW, is this kind of branching off a section of it, like fast forwarding a little bit, you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. So once you take this program, then you can have advanced standing into level 2 of our PSW program. And a lot of people ask, what is the difference between a supportive care worker and a PSW? And the biggest difference is a supportive care worker can look after more stable people, whereas PSWs have a little bit more comprehensive training. So they can look after palliative care, they can look after people with dementia. So yeah, if you take this program, you're like, yes, I really love this, then you can pathway right into PSW, which aligns really nice, and then get more experience as a PSW too, because we all know how much it's needed in the healthcare industry. We need those people who just have that feeling function, who just genuinely enjoy helping people.
Yes, definitely. I think it's a good way to start too. I think it's just there's just more comprehensive training, it sounds like, with this program. And we all know that like there's different different positions out there that are almost like a PSW, but not, and they really do lack a lot of training. And we kind of throw people into these situations where they're taking care of vulnerable people and they're lacking basic training. So I think this is really cool and a very neat way for you to figure out if this is something you even want before you start dishing out the money and the time and the energy to do an actual college program. So when you said that it kind of fast tracks you a little bit, if you decide to become a PSW, would they come back to you and maybe apply for the PSW program through Conestoga? Does this offer them a bit of time cut off of maybe the 1-year program that's typical for colleges, or how does that work?
Yeah, so what would happen once they take the program, they say, yes, I love healthcare and I love helping people, I want to become a PSW. And then they would just reach out to us. We would put them in touch with the PSW program where they fill out an application for advanced standing. And then they could join level 2, so semester 2 of a PSW program. And there's different offerings for the PSW program too, like there's part-time, full-time, and sometimes accelerated. So we could see what works out. And, you could be a supportive care worker for a year, 2 years, and then decide to make the switch. Or you could, as soon as you're done school, if you know you're ready, then we can assist you with that.
That's really cool. I like that. A big thing I've heard from online learning or even, pandemic PSWs is that they feel very alone when they're thrown out into the workplace. And like I said, you're kind of holding their hand and getting them employment from this experience, from teaching and taking this course. So once they finish this course, what does that kind of look like when you're transitioning them into a job? Is it a job that they've done their clinical placement at? Is this just like shopping around for jobs in general and you're kind of guiding them or helping them with
So
resume? What does that look like?
yeah, so they prior to starting the program, they have to have an offer of employment from an employer. So before they even start, we set them up with an employer. They have their resume ready. They go through an interview. They make sure it's a good fit, not only for themselves, but for the employer too, because we want them to have long-term employment with that person, that organization, right? So you do all the hard work beforehand. And just really making sure that your moral compass aligns with the employer you choose, and do a little bit of research. Like we have home care companies, we have group homes, we have retirement home. Have a couple different interviews, see what's the right fit, see how they value their current healthcare providers, right? And just make sure that it's a company that you feel good about working with. And then from there, yeah, you'll do your 80 hours of paid preceptorship with them. And afterwards, they have you a job offer for you. So you'll be working with them in different companies call it different roles, but an unregulated healthcare provider role. So, some of them do call them supportive care workers like our program. Others might be a healthcare aide position. But when you're doing your 80 hours of preceptorship, you're shadowing someone. So you're shadowing them, you're getting that experience. And, if you need a little bit more experience after that, don't hesitate to ask the employer, say, hey, is it possible that I get a little bit more training with this client? Because the employers want you to be comfortable, and they want you and their clients to be safe. So you just have to be able to speak up and ask for what you need, because everyone learns a little bit different. If it's a skill that you need a little bit more extra training on while you're taking our labs, you could always say to the instructor, hey, can I stay behind and can I work on this a little bit more?
Which is cool. And as we were saying before we started filming, I saw you on TV. So I saw this question, or more or less what you said on TV, but I wanted to kind of bring it to the podcast here for our listeners. If you can't make it to your labs are offered over Zoom, but if you prefer the in-person, like hands-on experience, you have that as well, right? Like this is also what you're offering. It's like a best of both worlds kind of thing.
Yeah, so we do have in-person labs available at certain locations. So if you're able to travel to a lab location, I do recommend it, because for me, I know I like touching things. I like to know how things work. So we have lifts there, we have mannequins, we have wheelchairs, there's beds. You get to practice with the other people that you're going to class with, right? So that's kind of nice, and you don't feel as isolated, like you mentioned, because you develop these relationships. But sometimes that's not possible, and so because of the pandemic, we've had to be so creative, and we've been able to successfully have labs virtually too. It's not the same, but we have fun, and we make sure that you know how to look after your clients and residents properly and safely.
And that kind of brings me to my next question too. I know you already talked about how there's a bit of a line between a PSW and a caregiver or a supportive caregiver. Supportive caregivers aren't really doing like lifts and stuff. You said, I remember talking to you, you were saying it's more like housekeeping stuff, like basic food prep, basic care needs, right? Like, could you kind of walk us through a little bit more in depth what that would be or what that would look like?
So in the ideal situation, what would happen, let's say if the home care company, a lot of times they do need a more of a companionship person to be there to remind them of their medication, or maybe they don't have good mobility and taking them around the block for a walk. But maybe they just are a little bit not balanced, and they need your arm while you help them in and out of the shower, right? So something like that. Or maybe there are lift transfers, but there's two people there, right? So you're helping them being that second person. So that could be something, but it's where we want people that are able to advocate for themselves, clients you're looking after. Of course, as you take the PSW training and you get more in depth and more comfortable, then you can have clients with more complex medical needs. But this is more basic, just kind of getting started. Clients who can advocate for themselves, who have a standard care plan established. And we don't see any, of course, we can't predict this, but we don't see any big changes in their care day to day.
Right. And when you were talking about lifts again too, they would be more like the eyes, because there's usually when you're lifting someone, one person's doing, hooking them up and doing whatever, but the other person's more or less supervising or just, spotting.
Yeah.
Would that be where the caregiver would jump in?
Yeah, exactly. So they would just be the second set of eyes. They'd be able to assist if needed, but they're for the safety aspect of things.
That's cool. I think that's kind of neat. When you're educated on it and when you're not thrown into things like you're not supposed to be.
Yeah.
But having a bit of basic understanding of how that stuff works without actually having to do it yourself. I think that really scares people.
Yeah. And in the training, like I don't know what your training was like, but when I became a PSW, we didn't do any training on lifts, but this is a long time ago. But if you've ever had a chance to put someone in a lift before or yourself be in one, it's quite the experience. So it's nice like being in the lab and of course just following all the safety protocols, but sitting in a wheelchair, helping one of the other students do a transfer properly, just to kind of see what it's like, so that when you're observing people in the home and community, you kind of know what they're going through. I think that makes a big difference, right?
Definitely. It kind of takes a bit of the edge off too. I find that it gets a little scary. And like you said, with like lifts and stuff, people have different slings, there's different stuff going on. And if this is something you're just trying to dip your toes in, that's the stuff you really don't want to dive into maybe head first. So it's nice, again, you get your education, you know how to do it safely, but it's not required of you to actually perform the task, more or less just supervise or help out your partner. And that's neat. Have you had to go in a lift before? Did they do that for your school?
I don't think it was for my school, but I remember when I worked for a company, they did training and they got us to go in the lifts. I've never been in a Hoyer lift before that. So that was very interesting.
I think that would be interesting. I kind of was like, that would be kind of
It
different.
kind of helps you like think about how your client would feel, right? Having no control and you're just trusting someone that they know how to do it safely. And so a lot of trust goes in from our clients.
That's neat. Well, it is neat. It's kind of a different way of training, which I've never went to a lift before, and maybe I should try and see how it goes, because it would put a different spin on things for sure. Just to kind of get into like the more cut and dry stuff, what would make you eligible for this program?
Perfect question. So to be eligible for this program, you do have to be a Canadian citizen, permanent resident, or conventional refugee. So if you have any type of work, study permit, or visa, unfortunately, you wouldn't be eligible. But as long as you have, the permanent residency, Canadian citizenship, or conventional refugee. And then the second part to the admission is that you have to have either your Ontario high school diploma or an equivalency. So if you've done a GED, or maybe you've done previous post-secondary education at a public organization, or sometimes we can count some like educational credentials or assessments like IELTS and WES. And then if you don't have that, that's okay. That's no problem. We do have an English assessment that you can do, and we would give you those options to do that. So there's no barriers there. We want to make sure that everyone can join the program, but we do have to make sure that everyone is able to communicate effectively in English, just because not only the schooling, a lot of it's online, right? So you need to be able to navigate, you need to be able to do your assignments and have conversations. But when you're working in the field, a lot of people you look after, they might be hearing impaired. So we just want to make sure that you're able to communicate effectively with them.
Which makes sense. That's great. I think it's really neat too that if you take this program, sorry, how long was it again? Did you say that and I just forgot? I'm sorry.
Maybe, I don't, 18 weeks, so about 4 months.
Okay, yeah. So 4 months and you would walk away with this with a job. But also you're getting your CPR, your mental health, and your food safety. I have my notes from when we spoke before.
Very good.
But you're walking away with stuff that you would actually need in both careers. So this is very, very neat to kind of, again, dip your toes in, but getting a position in healthcare that is, it sounds like safe and it sounds nice. Like, and I know that sounds kind of silly, but there's so many employers and people out there, not everybody, but they take the PSW education and they almost cut it in half and it's like a quick day course and it's like, great, here you go take care of this person. And that's when we start to see a lot of errors, a lot of safety issues. And we also see people leave the field because they're like, this is scary, I don't want to be a part of this. And it's really not as scary. Well, it is scary sometimes, just learning new stuff, but it's a lot better to come in and be a little bit better prepared, because then you're like, oh, this is good, I can stay here. And things are just done better. And I just think this is so great. I wish so many people would do this, just because you're being trained to do things properly
Well,
without
I think the nice thing too about going to college for a program, like, of course, I know there's a lot of organizations that do their own training, and that's perfect, but it's not transferable to other organizations, right? You can't say, oh, well, I took my free training course with company ABC and then go to the next company and they're like, oh, that's great, but right. So it's just a standard level of care that you're taught those skills. And then of course, like just being able to bridge into the PSW program afterwards, it opens up a lot of possibilities for you. And then from there, if you decide to do PSW to nursing, like there's so many different options depending where you want to take your career. But I don't know, being in the healthcare industry, like you come home at the end of the day, and yes, there's days that are difficult, right? You're looking after people who are not feeling well. Maybe you're looking after seniors or people with disabilities, but overall, you come home at the end of the day and you know that you've made a difference in someone's life, and you feel good, right? And so if you're ever like, you don't know if you want to get into the healthcare field, if your instinct is to help people, like whether it's something simple, like you see someone walking across the road and they need a helping arm, or at the grocery store, you see someone trying to reach the top shelf and you're like, hey, I can help that person, then this is a career to consider. And it's very flexible too, right? It doesn't have to be a full-time job if you're just looking for something. Maybe you're just looking for a casual part-time position while you're doing something with your other career, right? So many options depending on what you want to do and what kind of training you want to take.
Yes, it's very unique. You get to, like you said, transferring your education into different opportunities, which, like you said, employers may train someone, but it's only exclusive to their company. So this is so great and very accessible as well. I know you're offering day and evening classes, right? Yeah, day and evening classes. If you can't make your lab, sometimes it's hard to get public transit to certain places, or it's costly or whatever. You can take your labs over Zoom and ask people for help and do your clinical placement in person. And again, ask people for help, but getting the hands-on experience, not just getting isolated by yourself, learning things on your own. So this is really cool. I'm a fan. I'm a fan of this. I think this is what we need. I think we need a little bit more of a deep dive into education, even for healthcare aides. Like their job is important. Learning how to cook things properly or to give someone an arm properly, like it's all very important, and their jobs are very important, and they need the training for it. So this is cool. This is very, very solid. I'm just such a fan. Is there anything else that maybe you could say on this, or you want to leave us with?
No, nothing specifically, just, if you are interested in this program, you want to hear a little bit more, if you go to our website, so supportive care full-time at Conestoga College, if you type that in Google, it'll come up with our website, register for an information session. We'll go through a little bit more in depth what the program covers so that you have those details. And then if you're interested, I would be more than happy to introduce you to some employers in your area. And then we do have some different upcoming cohorts. So the next one, so our May is closed, but we do have July, September, and October. So lots of different possibilities. And, it's not only for people who are doing second careers, even high school graduates right now that don't know what they want to do. Why not try this, see if it's something you like. Completely free, right? So you don't always get those opportunities. And, you get lots of things, like Taylor said, to add to your portfolio, your CPR, your mental health, first aid, food safety. But no, being a career, having a career as a caregiver is just, it's so rewarding. So I do recommend it to everyone who's interested. And I really thank you for having me here today.
I'm happy to have you here. And again, I just want to repeat that it's free. It's a free course to take. So if you're interested, you should have proper training to come in. I am fully supportive of that. And again, like you said, Beth, an information session too. I just think that this is such a great approach and a proper approach to introducing people into the healthcare field. You're holding their hand, you're introducing them slowly. And it's just, I think it's going to be all around a success. We're going to avoid safety issues, creates retention, all of this incredible stuff. So thank you so much for being here today and for educating us and just giving us this wonderful program. I'm so happy about it. So thank you again. And for all of our listeners, I will put a link. I think I'm going to put a link in the caption to this, or I will be dropping some sort of social media, announcing Beth's podcast. So I'll put that in the description or the caption box and make it a little bit accessible for those interested. But thank you all for listening today. And I hope you have a fantastic weekend, because we drop on Fridays. But thank you so much, Beth, again, and talk to you all soon. Bye.